I have a speech impediment, so I prefer to use text-to-speech to talk. I also included subtitles. I'm sorry if this makes this video less understandable. I start off by drawing an idea of what I want to do. I also make sure that my fabrics look good together. You need to plan out what you want to do before you start cutting fabric. I draw my tail shape on 2 pieces of paper taped together and mark out where I want each color to be and the fur direction. This will be very helpful when everything's cut out. I cut out everything. I sometimes leave smaller patterns alone until I trace out the bigger pattern it's on. I also sometimes put letters next to the pieces, so I know which piece goes where if they're similar in shape. For the fabric, I'm using Hull fabric. I do prefer Fursuit supplies because they give you a lot more fur for the same price, but Hull has more variety. I do have to give a warning that one of my fabrics from Hull had some black ties that I couldn't get out of the fur, so there are little sections you can't use because of these weird plastic strands. To figure out which way the fur is going, run your hand through the fabric in one direction. If it sticks up, that's the opposite direction. If it lays smoothly down, it's the right direction. I have my fur pointing down here. My green is on the top of the tail on both sides, so instead of cutting out 2 separate pieces, I combine them into one by tracing both sides of the pattern piece together. Scissors will cut your fur off when you just want to cut the fabric. I use an X-Acto knife because it's sharp and thin enough to just cut the fabric. I need to warn you that if you use an X-Acto knife, never cut towards yourself. If you slip, you could really harm yourself. Cut away from yourself and always put the lid back on when you're not using it, even if it's for a little bit. I leave little seam allowance. The less you use, the better for parts like paws and heads, but for the tail, which will be stuffed, it really doesn't matter. I brush out the fur after each part one cut out to get rid of any loose fur. Faux fur is toxic. You need to use a mask when cutting the fur to prevent breathing in microplastics. Remember to vacuum and clean up your workspace. If a pattern part is thin and long, I use pins to keep the pattern flat while I trace. I'm doing the little seed details here. I know some people use spray paint for detailing, but I don't have that. For small parts like this, I use pins to keep the edges together. I try to use thread that is close to the color of one of the parts, so you won't be able to notice them on the final product. It usually doesn't matter with shag furs, which will cover seams anyway. It's probably going to look ugly from the back, especially if you have a lot of seam allowance. But on the side that matters, it'll look good. I like to brush out the fur every time I add a new part to get trapped fur out of the seams. With the bigger pieces, I use clips, but before I put the clips on, I use pins to position the pieces together. They're a lot easier to move around than clips. I got these Mum Craft clips off of Amazon for about $7. I couldn't find them anywhere, so I asked around, and finally, a fellow fursuit maker told me where to find them. I could link those in the description if you ever wanted to get some. I used a whole bunch of these clips and they do not move. Heavily recommend clips over pins because pins fall out whenever you blink wrong at them. After sewing them together, I flip over the full piece and brush it all out again. Brushing frequently helps with keeping loose fur out of tangling your needle and takes the fur out of the seams. I finished one side. And I finished both sides. I now have to sew them together. Because the green part was all one piece, I just need to sew the white and pink parts. Make sure everything is still inside out. You also need to make sure that you leave a hole big enough for your arm to fit through. I recommend putting it at the base of the tail, where no one is going to see. This is the hole I'm leaving open, which is just about the diameter of my arm. Sew everything together. I had some small white middle pieces, so I sewed those to the pink parts before I did the rest of the pink. This is my favorite part, but arguably the most annoying. You need to turn the piece inside out, or outside in, I guess. Start at the tip of the tail, and work your way to getting it out of the hole you left open. If you're having trouble getting the fur out, carefully pull back the edges and either gently pull the right side tail out or push in the bottom of the burrito. If all else fails, you might have to cut a bigger opening and sew that area to make sure your previous sewing doesn't get undone. When it's all the right way around, it's going to look pretty ugly. Comb out the fur, especially by the seams to get the stuck fur out. For the stuffing, I use polyfill. I was able to get a 20-ounce bag of stuffing at Walmart for about $5. The reason the hole needed to be able to fit your arm is so that you could shove the stuffing all the way to the end of the tail. You could scrunch up the tail and do it, but it's best when you could get your hand in there and really pack in the stuffing. Here's the tail fully stuffed. You could use cardboard or what I'll be doing to make it wearable. I prefer not to use cardboard because I like how the tail will wag when you walk. People use cardboard at the tail base to keep it horizontal. I cut 2 pieces of elastic that could go around a normal size belt. I position these loops about a finger apart. This is where your belt loop would go, so when you wear a belt with it, the tail will stay by your tailbone and not wander around your waist. After sewing, this is what I have. It doesn't really matter what the end looks like because no one will see it. It'll be hidden against your pants or under your shirt. Here's what it looks like with the belt attached. And here's what it will look like while someone is wearing it. I've added a video of how the tail will move when you shake your waist and when you walk. I hope this helps anyone who wants to make a tail.